Hello, everybody. Mike here, and we have some breaking news to report to you today on a story that we and a number of other influencers have been covering a lot involving Nomad Internet. If you're familiar with that, we have done a couple of stories. If you're not familiar, we'll just briefly tell you that this is a company that was selling mobile internet aimed primarily at rural folks and then RVers. They took out a lot of marketing ads, including on our channel and on others. And about several weeks ago, influencers, because of complaints that we received, most of us, if not all of us, canceled our agreements and would no longer promote that company through advertising or any other means because of all the complaints that are out there. Well, the complaints reached a new level today with the filing in Texas by the State Attorney General Ken Paxton. He has filed allegations of a $75 million fraud scheme against Nomad Internet. In particular, he named the defendants as Jessica Diane Garza, also known as Jessica Diane Harmon, and then also Alan Harmon, and a person named Omero Joshua Garza, also known by different names as well. They have an injunction which causes the company to stop promoting, stop selling these cards that they have that activate their service. But I want to talk about the lawsuit that injunction also is accompanied by. This is a pretty significant story, and if I can just read from it, you'll kind of get a sense at why so many influencers backed away after we heard about the behavior of this company. But the Texas Attorney General now saying, I'm quoting from the lawsuit, that the defendants opened business account contracts to obtain SIM cards. SIM cards are those little devices that fit inside a modem or inside a smartphone that enable it to connect to the internet. You get those from the main service providers, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, whatnot. Anyway, here's what this lawsuit alleges that Nomad Internet did. It said defendants then improperly leased the SIM cards to consumers as if they were an authorized internet service reseller. Defendants were not an authorized internet service reseller. And when they got these cards, the lawsuit says that Nomad Internet immediately breached their contracts that they had in getting them with originally they bought them from the service providers by reselling them and reselling them without approval, reselling internet access to unsuspecting consumers, mirroring the marketing and the appearance of legitimate service providers. When this method of obtaining, I'm quoting from the suit now, when this method of obtaining large quantities of SIM cards by creating business accounts was detected and then blocked by the internet service networks, defendants then applied for thousands of individual data lines using fictitious identities. Like the business account contracts, the contracts defendants entered into with the service providers for individual lines prohibited resale. After improperly acquiring large quantities of SIM cards by contracts for individual data lines, defendants illegally resold these lines to unsuspecting consumers. And even after network providers detected and terminated the unauthorized use of their networks, leaving consumers without internet access for which they were paying, defendants continued to charge consumers large monthly fees. The lawsuit has lots of allegations. It's 21 pages long, and it talks about the marketing of internet plans sold by Nomad Internet was deceptive, claims the suit. Defendants claimed to be a low-cost alternative to traditional internet service providers such as AT&T, Xfinity, Spectrum. Instead, its plans ranged from $129 to $199 a month, more than triple the national average, along with sign-up fees ranging hundreds of dollars. Many of these seem to indicate stuff that Nomad was doing back early on in 2022, in March of 2022, when they were selling things like different plan coverage, a deep red plan or a strong pink plan. These were not what they were doing in the most recent marketing that the various internet influencers like us have been reporting about. So this dates back to really 2022, it looks like. But the allegations are significant. The defendants have explicitly claimed an affiliation with traditional service providers when no such partnership existed, said the lawsuit. Through advertisements, giving defendants unwarranted legitimacy and credibility, misleading consumers to sign up. Moreover, by claiming certain wireless networks such as Verizon were partners when they were not, consumers who lived in areas where only Verizon plans worked were especially inclined to sign up for their services under the belief that they were receiving service from Verizon. It goes on, and it talks about how the Attorney General worked with Verizon, that Verizon conducted an undercover operation to determine if the SIM cards were being acquired and leased without authorization. They have a number of photographs that they introduced as evidence in this, SIM cards and devices delivered to Verizon from Nomad. They also monitored Nomad's social media activity, in which they discovered the defendants were boasting of acquiring large numbers of SIM cards that they had digitally altered and promised to distribute to consumers. The internet service providers would discover that their SIM cards were being used for more data than which they were agreed and improperly being used. And so the internet service providers proceeded to limit the amount of data. They throttled them. And then the customers who unwittingly bought this scheme from Nomad would notice the substantial slowdown, and they would contact Nomad, assuming that Nomad owned or had some degree of control over the internet service. And of course, because Nomad did not own or control the equipment, Nomad did nothing except to tell the consumers to return the SIM cards along with the routers in which they were delivered. This was the complaint that we kept getting back from people who had been using Nomad, particularly last year in 2022. The lawsuit says that sometimes Nomad would send the consumer a new SIM card and a router. But oftentimes the SIM card sent to the complaining consumer was a SIM card that had already been throttled, resulting in equally poor results. And despite the poor service provided, defendants charged consumers full price, often charged consumers for equipment that was never delivered, or charged consumers multiple times. When consumers attempted to cancel, they were either told they must first return the equipment, despite the consumers often having never received the product in the first place, or they were told they had successfully canceled the subscription, only to be later charged by Nomad again. This is all in a lawsuit, 21 pages filed against Nomad Internet, and an injunction issued. The state of Texas, through its Attorney General Ken Paxton, asked for this injunction, and it was granted. And it's a temporary injunction. It has frozen some of the assets against Nomad. The state hopes that this, I'm going to quote from the Attorney General, he says, "I've secured a temporary injunction with an asset freeze against Nomad to make sure they cannot scam any more unsuspecting consumers who are simply trying to obtain basic internet access. My office will continue to vigilantly monitor all companies engaging in deceptive trade practices and looking to scam Texas consumers." It goes on to talk about how they will allow the use of some funds for refunds. It's going to be supervised by Texas. They have frozen the personal assets of the Garzas, although they allowed them to take out as much as $1,000 a week for their family expenses. They have the two Garzas have 5 children, apparently, in this report. So it's a big development, and it's a development that we're delighted to report. How much of the alleged $75 million involved in this scheme will be recovered is far from being determined at this point, but there have been now some legal issues taken, an asset freeze. They've been prohibited from promoting unlimited internet through these SIM cards anymore. I'm not sure what the company's legal status is. Their website was still up when I checked a few minutes ago, but we wanted to get you this information as fast as we can. I'm going to link in the description below the link to the actual lawsuit and a link to the injunction. And you can read all of the details that I kind of encapsulated just now. But I wanted to get this story out to you as fast as possible. Thank you guys so much for watching, and the wheels of justice are starting to turn against Nomad Internet.